Welcome to MCN and a series of videos where we speak to MCN staff about the long-term test bikes they've been running. It's the end of 2024 and I'm with Carl Stevens, our new Deputy Editor for MCN. Congratulations.
Indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Ex-road tester.
Yep.
So, you've been running this Yamaha for half a year. First half of the year you had an MT-09, didn't you?
Yeah, so we started off with the MT-09. These came in a bit later. Obviously both the MT-09 and the XSR900 GP are new or updated for this year. So we run until sort of July, August with the MT-09. To be honest, I didn't want to give it back. It's worth watching that video because I absolutely love that thing, but
Yeah.
I was really excited to get my hands on this.
So this is an XSR900 GP.
Yep.
And this bike is probably one of the most eagerly anticipated of 2024, wasn't it? It's the one that got us all really, really excited.
Yeah.
Because it looks like, well, it's inspired by late 80s Yamaha 500 Grand Prix bike. So it conjures up memories for me of Kenny Roberts, Eddie Lawson, Wayne Rainey, Neil Mackenzie. It's got all the styling cues, isn't it? But
yeah.
I'm going to ask you what it's been like to live with, and you've very kindly given me 10 good things you like and 10 not so good things.
Yeah.
So just before we run into them, what have you done on the bike and how many miles have you done?
So I've done just over 3,000 on this one. We've had another bike in that we've done a big test on. I also did the launch of this bike in Portugal. So I've done quite a few miles over different bikes, but this one I've done 3,000 in the UK.
Right, okay. So let's crack on with the list. The first thing you said is it's the ultimate head turner.
Yeah, and I'm not just going to be obvious about this and say like, oh, it's big, it's beautiful, it's glamorous. But what I am going to say is we're really lucky in this job that we can ride like the most incredible motorcycles on this earth. And yet you ride a Panigale, you ride like a MV, you can ride all these amazing machines and people do look. But I have never had a bike that has garnered so much attention. Like you'll be cruising down the motorway and people are bibbing you and just giving you a thumbs up. You go roll
You sure
through
that's
town.
not your riding?
Yeah, yeah, probably just missing a helmet strap or something. But honestly, people are turning around and like double taking, people are staring at it. It is visually, it's just quite sort of individual, and I think it's just incredible how much attention it's got. And I've never really noticed it as much on anything even close to this.
Yeah.
It's what sort of Yamaha really wanted to go for, and they've really hit the nail with that one.
It's a good looking bike, isn't it? And you've got a belly pan on this, haven't you? Which is a
yeah. So that's a 5. We'll come to that a bit later on.
Okay.
But yeah.
The only thing missing for me is not proper Marlboro Yamaha red. It's a little bit dull, isn't it? But I don't think you can have Lumo red that lasts, that doesn't go UV pale.
And as a fun fact, it's actually all of these bikes are hand painted at the factory.
Oh, that is fun.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Right, next thing on your list is the engine's never boring on the road for the most part. Rolls nicely in a sporty frock.
Yes.
Bodes well for the R9.
Yeah, so I think this is really interesting because, you know, like yourself, like we do get to ride like the bigger capacity stuff. When you look at sports bikes now, if they're not hitting the 200 horsepower mark, you look at it and you go, but the thing that I like about this bike, it's sub 120 horsepower, but for the UK roads, it fits really nicely in sort of a sportier style. So you've got enough grunt, you've got enough power, you've got enough go on the throttle where it doesn't actually feel like you're really wanting too much more. Like you never get off it and feel underwhelmed, which sort of bodes well for like the new Supersport class with the sort of capacity of the Ducati, the KTM, the Yamaha. Like they're sort of in a nice range. It's something that you can ride fairly hard without getting too illegal too fast.
So it's 117 bhp this and 64 pound-foot of torque.
Claimed.
Claimed. We're going to come back to that.
We'll come back to that.
We'll come back to that. Okay. So in a nutshell, it's fast.
Yeah, it's fast enough.
Fast and exciting. It rings your bell. You're
Yeah.
used to racing.
Yeah.
Used to riding big bikes, and it's still enough.
Yeah, it's proof that, you know, there is no replacement for displacement, but you don't need to have crazy horsepower figures to put a smile on your face.
Yeah. Okay, next one, you talked about stability. It's got a long wheelbase. It's predictable, balanced and neutral, confidence inspiring even on dodgy tarmac.
Yeah, so it's not like a standard supersport bike like your CBR 600, your ZX6s that are sort of really sharp on the front end and really agile for getting into a corner. It feels quite low and long and stable. So although it's not sharp, it holds the line really well and it's really predictable. Like you can always feel where it's going to be and what it's going to be doing. And it's just a really pleasant, gentle machine to ride through corners.
Yeah. Is this the bike we rode at Donington?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, handles lovely.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing you like about this, and I totally agree, is a little small detail. So you've got the R clips.
Yep. So you've got the little clips.
Yeah. So they're for the fairing stays.
Yep.
You've got the kind of where you can see the paint through the.
Yeah. So like
screen.
even like the overspill on that, it was done when I was talking to like the designers of this bike. Like little details like that were actually done purposefully to try and echo that feel of you know the 80s and the 90s. And I just like the fact that even though it's not stupidly expensive, when you look at like other sort of retro-y style bikes like the Super Veloce and stuff like that, the 17, 18, 19 grand, they've kept the price point at a good point at 12.5-ish, but they've actually put in a lot of attention to detail, and you can really see it. You can really get a feel for it when you jump on, which is quite nice.
Yeah. Do you want a fun fact?
Go on.
These yellow number plates
Yep.
were mandatory in 500s up until 91 or 2. So if it was a yellow plate, it always meant it was a 500. And then after that, they let the bikes have any colour background they wanted.
So this is what I love shooting with Neezy. You always learn something new.
There you go.
He's just a fountain of
knowledge.
knowledge.
So a yellow plate means 500. That means factory. That means the best.
I didn't know that.
There you go.
Oh, that is cool. That's made it even better now.
Yeah.
That's made me love it even more.
That's probably why you can see it, because you think, I'm Lawson.
But then that's an extra dimension to it that I didn't even know about.
I'm here all week. Right, you like the dash?
Yes.
The tacho detail and all the little...
Yeah, so the dash is unchanged from like the platform in, say, the MT09, but the fact that they've gone the extra little mile and they put another setting in, so it's got like a retro taco style. It's just them little things that I think really make this bike quite special.
Yeah. Then we've got the interface. For the most part, it's really easy to change modes, individual settings, and they stay like that, so you can turn the wheel control off and you don't have to reset it.
And you can do that independently as well.
Does it wheelie?
It does, but it's quite difficult. The balance point's quite high, so it's not the best wheelie bike in the world.
No. So it's all easy to, I mean, this switch gear is quite busy.
Yeah.
But it's all right.
It's busy, but you get used to it really quickly because all the buttons have quite an independent feel to them. So like the toggle for changing bits around is like a joystick that you can feel really easily. The indicators are really slick. They're different to sort of a standard indicator. It's a button. It's sort of like, it's very smooth and soft.
Yeah.
And the sort of first time you ride it, you're a bit like, oh, what's that? And then you get used to it really easily, and it's easy to cancel, and you can double click them and stuff. But all the buttons feel really nice. The mode button's really easy to use if you want to change modes. It all feels very natural very quickly.
Are they backlit?
No. But you can't ride this in the dark because the headlight's not very good, but we'll come to that.
We'll come to that.
Yeah.
Especially when you've got a big black bike. Cruise control.
Yes.
Perfect, necessary for this thing.
Yes.
Because of the comfort.
Yeah, the cruise control should be OE on every bike ever.
100%.
Yeah, it's so handy. There's so many speed limits, average speeds, stuff like that. And to be honest, even though it's great and perfect and you need it on a touring bike, actually you need it on this more because it is uncomfortable. It gives you time to, rest up and move about.
So is it quite wristy? Or are you coming on to that?
I'm going to come on to that because that's a whole video in itself.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I agree. Traction control should be on every bike, and obviously it can be with bikes with ride-by-wire, can't it?
Yeah,
so,
yeah, exactly.
And this has. Right, tyres.
Yes.
You like Diablo Rosso 4, the replacements.
Yep.
So this had Bridgestone S23, but they're OE spec, weren't
yes,
they?
they're good. They're good tyres.
They're safe, aren't they?
Yeah, they do the job really well. We rode at Donington on a nice sunny day earlier in the year. We had a lovely day out, and it's just they do what is required of them up to a certain point, and then that's when you sort of hit their limits. But they're never sort of dangerous in the way that they respond. It's just you sort of get to the point where they go.
And they're built to a price, aren't they? That's the whole thing with OE tyres.
Yeah, exactly.
They're kind of budget, aren't they?
The thing I like about these Rosso 4s is how they perform in the wet and the cold, to be honest.
Yeah.
If you get this bike, you might not be riding it too much in those conditions, but we are in the UK, it will happen. They warm up really quickly and they respond really well when it's just not perfect. And it fits really nice with this bike. It just feels like you have just that bit more, a bit more of a safety net below
Yeah.
you.
And just to sort of elaborate, Rosso 4s sit in Pirelli's range between the sports touring tyre
Yep.
and the sort of semi-track day tyre,
Yeah.
which is the Rosso Corsa
4,
and
which
then
is
you've
the
got
sporty
Super
one.
Corsa, so it's
Yeah.
a good all-round sports tyre.
Yeah, it's the more sort of pedestrian-y one as well.
Yeah, good tyres. And finally, on your good list, is gives you garage wood.
Yeah, I feel like this is important for a bike like this. Like, you've got to open your garage door and you've got to be excited about it. Like, that's why we all ride bikes, isn't it? And every time you open the garage door and you look at that little front end is looking at you, you're like,
With a yellow number plate.
yeah, you're like, oh, do you know what? I'm just gonna chuck the lid on and go for a spin.
Yeah.
And you know, it's something that in this day and age, you know, sometimes a lot of bikes. I don't get it with a lot of bikes, but this thing really does bring it out of you. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to be excited about something, and you know, I go in my garage quite a lot, and every time I open it up, like so many times this year, I've just gone, I'm just gonna go for a spin.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, it's that sort of, you know, that happiness and joy. That's why we all ride bikes, isn't it? And that is this machine for me.
I mean, that's quite interesting because really, all the styling cues on this bike happened before you were born.
Yeah.
So it's not as if, when I look at this, I think of all the old 500s. But how old are you?
29.
29. So
Yeah. But it's a bit before my time.
exactly, but it still gives you garage wood.
Yeah, and to be
Despite
honest, and I think it does that as well at my age because it has that iconic presence, but it also has that sort of modern feel to it. So like I get on like the older machinery, no offence, but I like being able to start a bike up straight away without having to mess around with it. I like just knowing that I'm not going to have to do regular maintenance and all that sort of stuff on it besides the norm. I like having, you know, a dash and cruise control that sort of talk to me and tell me how much fuel I'm going to have. I'm used to those creature comforts because of my age, but I can also appreciate how beautiful and how amazing those machines were.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to the bad list. Probably clutching at straws with a lot of them because it's a good bike, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the thing, and also being conscious of the price point. So we're going to start off with
How much is it?
£12,506.
Well, the first thing on your list is the performance of it isn't mind-blowing if you're a performance hound. So
Yes.
the actual power, I'll read this out for you.
Yep.
The actual power on BSD's dyno
Yep.
at the back wheel is 105.6 bhp
Yep.
and 64 lub-foots of torque.
Yep.
So 105, that's kind of like a Naughty's Supersport bike, I would say, on BSD's dyno. Top speed's 146.
Measured.
Yeah, at runway, which is where you would have done your wheelies to discover if it wheelies or not. 0 to 60 is 3.35.
Which is good.
And that's pretty good.
Yeah.
0 to 100, sub 7, 697. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So what do you think then about performance?
So I'm not. This isn't as a bad point per se, but all I'm saying of if you're going to be riding it on track, it isn't. It isn't, shall we say, as big and powerful as you might want, especially considering the wet weight is sitting over 205 kilos.
Yeah.
Obviously, we rode it at Donington, and you're sort of living a little bit in your mirrors because when you get up to sort of above third gear, all the bigger bikes are coming at you pretty quickly, aren't they? And it's sort of, it could just do that little bit more if you're going to be doing some track stuff, the odd track day and bits like that on it.
Yeah.
That's what I would say personally.
Yeah, I agree. It felt a bit underwhelming at Donington in a fast group when you've got R1s piling past you.
Yeah.
If you were in a different group with similar bikes, I think you'd have the best time ever. But
yeah, exactly that. I wish that they, like you've said before, I wish they sort of
had like 120
capacity.
bhp groups,
Yes.
or 900cc groups or whatever.
Yeah, like when you the closing speed on big bikes compared to this is pretty drastic, and it sort of gets humbled pretty quickly. Like, it's not a bad thing for a lot of people. A lot of people probably won't even take it on track, but if you are, that is something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, just before you brake at the end of the back straight at Donington, the speed difference has got to be a good 20, 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, and it feels like a lot more when something's coming coming pretty quick.
But on the road is more than enough.
Yeah, on the road
Yeah.
it's perfect. This is, we tried to do the most in-depth review that we physically could, and that's just sort of where we come to.
Okay, so next one on your list is the fuel tank and its capacity, range. 14 litre tank, sub 50 mpg on a good day, and under 170 miles on a tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
not so good.
That's been as
So 14 litre tank, that's small, isn't it?
I know. Look at the size of it. How
It's
how
big,
is it?
yeah. It's a reverse TARDIS.
Yeah. It's quite frustrating because, to be honest, if you're being a little bit more
Spirited.
spirited, you're sort of not doing much more than 110, 120 miles.
So is that when the light comes on? About?
No, about you can get the light on at about 100
Right.
if you're having fun, which is not ideal, is it?
Yeah. But you say that, that's probably like an old super sport bike. You know, like an old, when back in the day before you were born,
Yeah.
the lights would come on about 100 miles and they had 17 litre tanks. So,
Yeah.
because they were doing like in their 30s. So it's not bad, but
Yeah.
given, I get your point, given the size of the tank,
Yeah.
it could have a lot more capacity, couldn't it? And a lot more range.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think just because now we are spoilt with what we're given from bikes, and bikes are so good all round, it is noticeable when you jump on
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And I guess at track days as well, if you ride to a track day and you have to fill up before you get to the track, you're going to munch through fuel pretty soon,
Yeah, well,
aren't you?
yeah, we
And then
did.
you're going to have to ride out the track to find fuel again.
Or get really expensive fuel at the track.
Yeah.
So it's just not ideal for anyone,
No,
really.
exactly. Okay. Right, next thing on your list is agility over stability. So I guess you want it a little bit more agile. So
Yeah.
you said it's long, it's 1500 millimetre wheelbase, heavy, 205 kilos, you said. So yeah, it's kind of got the dimensions of 1,000, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a big thing, and you know, you get loads of stability. It's really confidence inspiring in that aspect. But with a sports bike, I quite like it to be sort of sitting a little bit on its nose. I like it to, I'd almost sort of lose a bit of that stability for a bit more agility. For example, when we took it to the track day at Donington, when you're changing direction at foggy S's,
Yeah, it's a bit of a heave.
yeah, you've really got to weight the pegs and get the thing moving. You feel like you've got to sort of call a taxi to get from apex to apex.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's still a good bike. It's still
Yeah.
a cracking bike, and it still handles well. But in terms of, you know, sheer agility, it really does miss out on that. Now,
Yeah.
it has got fully adjustable suspension that we've had a little bit of a play around with, which does help. But then when we were running on the OE S23s, you're moving the problem from sort of one place to another, and as soon as you start getting handling better, you run into more limitations with grip. But with what I've found with my one, it might be a bit unconventional compared to how some other people do it, but I added a bit of preload onto the rear, and I also softened the high-speed compression and the preload on the front, just to get it to sort of dive through and try and get it lower through the forks, just to try and weight the front, really, just because it does sit quite neutral, and I just like the feeling of having a bike on its nose, almost on the stoppers, really.
Yeah, cool. Okay, next one, comfort.
Yes.
So yeah, it's too big and too foreign.
Yes. So this is a really strange one. So I stand at 5'7". What I've actually found on this bike is it's too big for me. So in essence, the actual size of the tank is really long.
So too long for you.
Yeah, so when you're sitting on it, even though the bars are set a little bit higher up than a standard conventional Supersport machine, because the tank is so long, I'm at full stretch on the bars. So when you're riding, you know, when you're fast, you're moving around, it's sort of fine because you're always moving.
Yeah.
As soon as you've got any prolonged period of time, and I'm talking it's sort of 15, 20 minutes, I'm sitting there, and because my arms are outstretched and my wrists are sort of sat up, it's super uncomfortable on my arms.
Are you able to take the weight with your elbow?
Yeah.
That's
So
the get out of jail free card.
And it's just basically just constantly on the tank, like I do with a pillow on the tank, really.
And the cruise control's helping there.
Yeah, the cruise control helps massively. But what is really interesting about this thing is that we've had some taller testers riding it. We've had some, when we was on the launch with some like the larger riders, they actually found it far more comfortable. And when you're looking at how they're sat on it, they're way over and on it and more natural. Whereas if you're slightly smaller, it's really, really uncomfortable. I actually find it more uncomfortable than a conventional Supersport machine, which is more compact, which allows me to sort of be able to be in a range where I want to be rather than just in one set position.
Yeah, quite a long tank. I could put two other bikes in that category, the Speed Triple 1200 RR.
Yeah, exactly the same.
And R9T Sport, remember that one?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, they're all, yeah, so yeah.
But it's also because this is based on the standard XSR900, which is a long bike anyway, but it has different bars. So
Yeah.
it's just, if you're a bit smaller, that's worth keeping in mind. I did run a wild ass seat for a bit, which is really good because I used it to sort of raise me up, to sort of give me a little bit of height, just almost like a booster seat. But it is a little bit frustrating as soon as you get to any corners, because you want to move around and get your bum off the seat and stuff. It slides around a bit too much, so I lost that off.
Yeah. Okay, so it's not very comfortable.
No, if this was my own bike, I'd pad the seat out, put a hump in there and raise it up.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, next one, braking power. Not ideal.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that.
So it's really frustrating because it sort of has the ingredients to be a really good system. And it's not just on track where you run into its limitations, even on the road when you're not even being super aggressive on it. Like it does lack that bite and that really sweet feel that a lot of modern sports bikes, even with Euro 5 and Euro 5 Plus, already have.
We've said that a million times, haven't we? Japanese ABS robs the feel and power out of even really good braking hardware.
Yeah.
Whereas Europeans, and it's definitely a philosophy thing or a political thing, they all know how to make good brakes. So obviously err on the side of conservatism rather than performance.
I couldn't have put it better myself. I put some EBC brake pads in it just to see how much the pads would make a difference. They make it slightly better, but it's minimal. When I took it off and we did some stuff on the airstrip, I pulled the ABS fuse, and that makes it heaps better. Obviously, I don't condone or recommend you doing so, but it makes such a drastic difference to the whole feel of it. And it's the same, the rear brake, you get no regulation for it because you feel like you're constantly fighting against it. It is just far too intrusive for my liking.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's hope they sort that out one day, because that is a big blind spot that I seem to have in it.
And other manufacturers get it so right.
Exactly,
it's so close.
Yeah. Okay. Kind of going back to comfort a bit. The pillion comfort. It's not amazing. The rear's quite high and over the rider.
So the good thing is it has a pillion seat. So when the bike was first released, we couldn't work out if it had it or not. Joe, when it was just like sort of the shots that were released by Yamaha, when we came to the launch, we saw it had one, which is great. It's the same as on the XSR900. It's essentially the same seat unit. All it is 2 bolts straight out and the seat's sort of sitting there. Right. But it is not very comfortable. And as well, because I'm quite small, you sit quite low in it. The seat is quite high, so anyone who sits on it is sort of sitting over you. Right. Yeah. So it's great if you want to just do like the odd jaunt, but it's not made. No. But it's great that it has one as an option.
It's a great seat unit on that as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's cool. It's got the yellow as well.
Exactly. Okay. You don't like the headlight?
No.
Weak.
Yeah, they are. It's not a good headlight. It's just.
Well, it doesn't look like it's going to be, does it?
Yeah, but
like smaller than a post box.
But I'm glad it's styled like that. So if for a bike like this, it can get away with it. I think. You know, I'd much rather have it a bit of style over substance for this.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this dash, it's the next one. It's got sat nav incorporated into it. It's a Garmin. Free but old, needs updating.
Yes, so it's the same system that I had on my MT09.
So that works, Bluetooth it to your phone, do you?
Yeah, and you connect it through, so it's got a Yamaha app that you can connect up to, and you also use a Garmin app that you connect it up to, but the actual software on the Garmin app, it just seems a bit clunky, it's a bit old, it takes you some odd routes. I've used it for sort of routes where I know where I'm going, and it's sort of taken me 10-15 minutes out of the way. It's picked up on roads that have been like that have been restructured and redone years ago. Right. So it's not. It's good. It's really good to have as sort of a backup. But I still opted just to use for a quad lock and Google Maps because I just feel more comfortable with that.
Okay. Next one is the bottom fairing and seat unit removal.
Yes.
Doesn't fit perfectly first time, and the belly pan. What's $599?
Yeah.
Quite expensive, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's a lot of money for a little bit of fairing. I think it's sort of split opinion as well, because some people like it, some people don't. You've got to, I know it sounds like really silly, but you've got to spend ages making sure this is, if you take it on and put it off, if you take it off and then put it back on, to get it lined up perfectly, like you get it lined up one side and then you look and the other side's not quite on. It's just like this, it doesn't quite sit perfectly, and unless you spend a bit of time just sort of getting it in and making sure it's all pristine. And if it like it isn't now because we've taken it off, and you look at it now and you're like, oh, it's just a little bit out.
Right.
It's just a little bit out, and it's just.
Yeah.
I think that must be doing your OCD nightmare looking at that.
Exactly. Now, staying on the subject of styling, tail tidy. You put a tail tidy
Yes, the standard unit
on. Is that a Yamaha one?
No, this is an R&G one.
Right.
So I'm not particularly talented when it comes to doing work on motorbikes. I leave that to people who know what they're doing. And I had help from Chris, our head of content, and it took us 2.5 hours and a lot of swearing.
Why is that? Because you've got to strip it so much of it down?
Yep, and redo the wiring on it for the indicators. It's a big clunky system to get off. It's hard work to get off. It's well worth it when you do it. I think that sort of transforms the back end when you look at it compared to the standard one, and it's really worth your time. But it is a heavy bit of work, and you do have to sort of hack it about a bit more than I'd like to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. And then finally, I think the mirrors.
Yeah, they are terrible.
Bar end mirrors are never good anyway. I've never tried a good set of bar ends.
Like the motor is smooth, but it's still a little bit vibey on the bars, and it just transfers straight through into them mirrors.
So you've got to pull the clutch in to see behind you.
Yeah, and even then you can't see anyway.
Right.
The frustrating thing as well is when I'm constantly trying to move about to try and get comfortable, I then have to move the mirrors because I'm moving my body so much to try and get myself comfortable. I'm out of where the mirrors are looking, so I'm constantly moving them. And as well, they're in a really awkward place because they're set quite high and quite far out. It's really frustrating for filtering.
Yeah. Well, so listening to what you said, is it fair to say it's not really a touring bike?
Yep.
Because it's not very comfortable. It's got the vibey mirrors and the wafty sat-nav and stuff. Yeah. It's probably not the ideal track day bike either.
Yep.
But I guess it's just a fun B-road, feel good, open your garage, isn't that great kind of bike?
And that's exactly, I think it's, like, I'm still looking at this bike and thinking, you know what, I would buy one. Like, these are all things that, like, we're just trying to give you the most comprehensive review possible. And even still, like, this is all stuff that you come to expect. Like, these are all just little niggles on a bike that is a incredible package, in my opinion. Like, I love the engine. I love the way it makes you feel. I love the way that you can just ride it so effortlessly. It's just a bloody good motorcycle that looks gorgeous.
So you would like one in your garage?
I would, yes, I would. I think that Yamaha sort of bucking the trend and going down this route is really interesting, but the way they've delivered it is, to be honest, it's better than I thought it would be.
Yeah. So it goes as well as it looks. Fantastic.
And it looks bloody good.
It looks bloody good, yeah. Well, thank you very much for showing us your bike.
Always a pleasure with you, Neevesy. Always a pleasure.
And thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more long-term test videos like this coming very soon.